If you've ever worked on a farm, you'll know just how important it is to have good fertiliser. It's an essential element of any working property. But did you know that fertiliser is far from environmentally friendly? Most fertilisers are made from ammonia. The ammonia market is worth about $150 billion a year. By 2050, that market is forecast to grow by 160% to $391 billion. But here's the thing. While it may help grow many plants, ammonia used as fertiliser is far from green. Ammonia currently produces about 2% of the world's emissions. This means that green ammonia production will make significant inroads towards net zero targets. Enter PlasmaLeap. PlasmaLeap is an Australian business focused on green ammonia production. They've created fertiliser on demand. It operates with renewable electricity, air and water. It eliminates CO2 from the equation. There's no need for global supply chains, shipping and transportation, and it's made on site at the farms. It has literally created something akin to lightning in a bottle. PlasmaLeap co-founders Professor PJ and Samantha Cullen join us now. PJ and Sam, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
PJ, let's start with you. How does an Irish farmer shake up ammonia production and potentially solve one of the world's biggest climate issues?
That's an interesting question. I'd like to say, I guess, that I was sitting in a paddock in Ireland and I had a eureka moment, but I guess I was more at that period, chasing cows and things. It was something that when you're living in farming, you don't maybe think of supply chains for fertilizer or climate change. Looking back at it, though, one thing it certainly has benefited me is the importance of agriculture, and how we balance this relationship with a push towards sustainability. And in particular, I'm interested in, maybe slightly biased, I guess, as a ex-farmer, but as a food consumer, I think we need to be really careful of how we push farming to be more sustainable. So we need to really support it. And there's a definite possibility of having an easy win by, making fertilizer green.
So tell us about what you've created in PlasmaLeap. How does your technology work?
Well, plasma is actually really just an excited gas, and electrifying the chemical industry is our platform technology. So you can do a lot with electricity and these excited electrons. And if you think about the gases that make the world go around, we have nitrogen, which is for fertilizer, and then we have things like CO2 or methane, and we can make a whole array of products, everything right up to jet fuel or plastics.
And so with respect to what you've created, how does it work?
So we just, in order to make fertilizer, well, the big issue I should say to start out with is that most plants can't actually fix their own nitrogen. So we have to have an artificial nitrogen fixation process. And this revolutionized the world and allowed the population to reach what it is now. So it was a major technology development of the development of the Haber-Bosch process. But if you think about it, nitrogen is all around us. It's in the air. So there's no reason why we need to be able to, use the fossil fuel approach. If we can split nitrogen, the hard part comes, how do you split nitrogen? Because it's really, really strong. Lightning can do this, and after a lightning storm, you actually are able to smell the thunder. That's some of the reactive species that you're getting. Around 4% of the world's nitrogen fixation actually comes from lightning strikes. So we know it. So we know that with electricity that you can split nitrogen, and then from that process we simply make it stable, package it as a product and supply it to the farm.
So I mentioned that in my introduction, you've created lightning in a bottle. Tell us more about that.
Well, it is, I guess you could say that. The problem with lightning, of course, is very hard to control where it's going to be. But lightning ultimately is just high energy electrons. And we do the same thing. So we just take electricity, we multiply the voltage up, we pass that excited electron into air, and we split the nitrogen, and then we get the fertilizer product.
Where did that idea come from? How did you figure out that you could do it, and then how did you go about doing that?
Well, it's not actually new. So before the invention of the Haber-Bosch process, there was an actual plasma process which was completely green, driven by electricity, and even run off Niagara Falls. And it's akin to basically what happened between the electric car and the fossil fuel car around the same time. The plasma process lost out because it couldn't compete in the energy efficiency. So the Haber-Bosch process came along. There was cheap natural gas. We didn't care about CO2 particularly at that time, and it just couldn't compete. The reason why we can compete now is because we have advanced electronics. So we can now produce a way of exciting those electrons, which is what we're looking for, in a much more energy efficient way. And we can even beat the Haber-Bosch process under those conditions.
So how can farmers, particularly those in Australia, but any farmer around the world, how can they use PlasmaLeap and its technology?
It should be pretty easy, because obviously if we're trying to build a sustainable technology, you also want to make it smart. So our vision is that we basically build these shipping container boxes. We plant them on the farm, or we plant them in a community, like a hub type of a design, and then we operate them. So the farmer ultimately just takes the off product.
So it's been described, your product, as a game changer for the industry. Why is it so significant, what you've created?
Well, I think it does three things. One, you have the climate aspect. So we remove CO2 from the process completely, which is a big win. The other aspect it does is it supplies security. So farmers, obviously, are very dependent upon fertilizer and where to get that product from. So traditionally, and here in Australia, the vast majority of ammonia for agriculture is actually imported. And then if you have something like COVID or any of these kind of events that cause issues within the supply chain, we have to address them. So really, if we have security in the supply chain of the product, is a big win. And then the third one is price security. So the volatility of that, of course, is related to the product. And we saw huge spikes in the price of fertilizer over the last few years, maybe 4 or 5 times. And that in turn has to be passed on to the consumer. So there are the three things that we can directly address.
Well, let's talk about price and potential savings, not only for the consumer, but also for the farmers, those on the land using the product. Have you done some maths on what it looks like for farmers and how much potentially they might be able to save per year by using PlasmaLeap?
Yes, we love maths, so we definitely did loads of maths on our calculations. What we don't want is to really be selling, number one, a technology or leasing a technology to farmers. We want to look at it in terms of product. So our design or our model basically is that we will guarantee the supply of an equivalent nitrogen product to the farmer at reduced levels. Mm-hmm. So we can say, for example, that we will supply to the farmer at 10% the current cost of urea or ammonia.
Okay. Sam, let's turn to you. You've been driving the business's commercialisation strategy. What sort of feedback are you getting from the industry within those that are working on the land throughout agriculture? I imagine the feedback's pretty positive.
Yeah, it's been extremely well received, and I say that with us doing a very casual expression of interest some time ago, and that was for us actually to get more information on the farms themselves, so what crops they were using, the size of the farms, and how much fertilizer they were spending. So we posted an expression of interest just via our website. We posted it on LinkedIn, and within 2 weeks we were inundated, and even beyond that. So that happened at the beginning of this year, and we still are getting many requests.
Really?
Yeah, people wanting to take the tech now. We actually even had a gentleman that turned up a few weeks ago. He turned up on site, and he was just adamant that he wanted to take a unit there and then.
Could they believe what you had created in this technology?
Yeah, look, farmers, people in this agricultural sector, they're extremely intelligent people. They're business operators, they're scientists, they know what the problems are. And, we're sitting here understanding those problems, and we truly do believe that we've got very good solutions. So all of these issues that we've addressed, the price certainty, accessing what they require, if they don't have to deal with those problems and they have a system that's positioned either on or close to their farms, giving them their end product, and they're paying less for it, of course they're going to be interested in it. So, to be truthful, we're not pushing any type of positioning or getting these out to market right now. Right now, as a business, we're really finessing the tech, finessing how it's going to work. And then we really need to have a strong approach on how we're going to manage this rollout, because the demand is huge and we don't want to see people disappointed. So that's actually why we stopped the EOI as well. We realised that if we kept going and we accrued this mass number and people would be first in line to get the tech, it's just wasn't going to be something, it wouldn't be a good consumer experience.
So let's talk about the tech. What does it look like? How big is it? Is it a reactor? Like, give us a description of what this actually looks like.
Well, it's multiple reactors. So again, even from what we were doing at the beginning of this year to now, there's a big evolution on how this tech has been redesigned and reworked. So we did have our pilot system on a farm. It's a shipping container. There'll be 20 feet or 40 feet. We're going to stick with that because logistically shipping containers are very easy to move, easy to place on the land. So we know that's going to work. Inside the shipping container is where we have all of our fancy tech and reactors, and I can't give too much away on what they look like, but
it's your secret sauce.
It's the secret sauce. But and in terms of actually an aesthetic, plasma is a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, everyone loves stars, everyone loves lightning, and this is literally taking this, lightning and putting it through these reactors inside this shipping container. It's actually quite fascinating.
So we know the demand is there. What does the pathway to commercialisation look like? Take us on that journey of how you start to develop the product, roll the product out.
At the moment, we have got a select bunch of farmers that are in Australia, who the next kind of rollout that we're positioning is going to be in Tasmania at this stage. Now, again, we had a number of farmers who are hoping to adopt the tech now. With that came a great conversation that we were able to leverage accessing their land to do a few more trials, because there's still some work to be done, which is fine. We've got to ensure that we've got this end product perfect. So we are going to be deploying across Tasmania at this point. Assuming all of our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, we get our strong insurance rating, is when we'll hopefully be able to get to the next phase, which would be manufacturing at a larger scale. Because at the moment, PlasmaLeap is manufacturing on site. So obviously that means we're producing probably between now and I'd say the next 12 to 18 months, the plan is to have at least 4 units ready to be deployed. That will be enough to give us a really good indication, using our Tasmanian farms, of how we'll be able to roll this out at a global level.
PJ, let's come back to you briefly. I mentioned in the introduction about emissions, climate change. As the scientist, what sort of impact can your technology have on net zero, reducing emissions, making climate better?
Well, it potentially can be huge, and there's wins both on the end user. So the type of product that you make actually impacts emissions, and you see this, for example, what's happening in Holland in terms of NOx emissions and the type of fertilizers that they use and the overuse of fertilizers. So you have the end user and the product, so we can win on that front. The synthesis of the product itself, and this is where you mentioned there's the 2%, that comes from the use of fossil fuel. So we can certainly get rid of that. On top of that, you have the transport of that product, because it's centralized. So there's another 1% coming from the movement of the product around the world. But even more than that, the electrification process itself may also be another win, because we're trying to build these technologies that we integrated into the grid, and that will allow us actually to expand the grid and stabilize variable renewable energies in a similar way to how here in Australia we're starting to use big batteries. And we can do something similar. So we can actually take the variability issue and make it a benefit for our particular technology. So not only are we able to stabilize the grid, but we're also making valuable product while doing so. So there's many wins as we electrify chemical industries.
Sam, back to you. Food security, huge global issue. What role can PlasmaLeap potentially play in improving food security?
Yeah, well, PJ mentioned earlier that accessing fertiliser and the costs associated to bring it into even Australia are huge. So if we're able to adopt a process that has these systems on a farm and your farmers can access exactly what they need to be able to produce better crops, more crops, we can take that same model and put it into regions, for example, like Africa. Africa has awful costs. Actually, I think it's about 4 times the cost just to bring in that same product. That's a region that already has problems with food in general. So if we're able to have our strong commercial model actually make some money, be able to bring this system over to an African market, food supply in those regions very likely won't be the same type of a problem. They'll be able to be self-sufficient. That's crucial.
Can we talk about just, if we look at, you're a Sydney-based business, you've had widespread interest across Australia, but this tech is global. It has capability to literally be put across the world. Have you mapped out what that might look like? Where you could?
The EOI was certainly not Australia restricted, and our requests are all over the world. And that is from not just farms themselves, that is from renewable energy sectors, that is from even fertiliser industries. Those sectors aren't afraid for change. They know that that's got to happen. I mean, for any of those businesses to sustain and be, I guess, doing the right things by the planet, they all have to evolve. So we have got an obligation to make this work for the world. Funny, when it comes to the business side of things, there's been a big push for us to, I guess, financially go to the States to get money, go abroad to get money. That's something that we're doing currently. But it won't be that we have to focus purely on Australia. We have always wanted to focus on Australia. We're a huge farming nation. It makes sense to do so. But the commercial, I guess, opportunities, we wouldn't be manufacturing here and then shipping abroad. That's going to contradict, again, some of the clean aspects of what we're doing. So there's opportunities for us to set up this business in other regions. But again, it comes to making sure things are centralised. You
spoke about raising money. I understand there's a capital funding round open at the moment. What can you tell us about the pathway to capital? Yeah, sure. So as a business, when we first started, we were selling a power source. That power source was sold to academics, and that was what was bootstrapping, I guess, our technology being further advanced. From there, we did a friends and family round, which once you get into that territory, that's a whole nother pressure of, you've got friends and family, money that's coming from people that you're not wanting to disappoint. It wasn't a small investment. It was $1 million, and we secured that, and there was, that really made us sit upright and go, right, here we go. So then we did a connote round, and through that we had a fantastic lead investor in Twinem, and we have the Melt, unbelievable, and the Melt, and then of course we had New Energy. Well, it was a very successful round again. So that's enabled us to grow our team, and it's enabled us to really finesse what we're doing in terms of our tech. So that being said, we're now in Series A mode. And, that's live. It's currently happening now. Frere, who's our other co-founder, he's about to head to the States again this week. We've got some incredible names who are sitting there waiting to know how, I guess, our term sheets are going to potentially be wrapped up. Anyone we are looking to bring into the business at this point, we really need strategic alignment. So that's where someone like a Twinem has been phenomenal. The Melt, all of these partners who are involved in PlasmaLeap are very much able to bring something to the table, and it benefits them as well as us, of course. But this next Series A round is where we're really going to see whether we are a global business. If we secure those funds, which we're asking for $20 million US, it's not a small amount of money, that takes us into this whole other portal of success. Well, we wish you both well on the journey to awesomeness. Remember the name, folks, PlasmaLeap Technology. Sam and PJ, thanks for coming in. Great to have you on the show, and all the best in the years ahead.
Pleasure.
Okay.